Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our community meeting for our Climate Action Plan. And to kick us off tonight, we're going to have some opening remarks by Mayor Throckmorton.
Thank you, Brenda, and welcome to all of you. Thanks for coming on this, balmy November evening. Heads up, winter is coming. Harvey, Irma, Maria, do any of these weather events sound familiar to you? Well, just this year in the United States, at least 15 extreme weather events have produced damage exceeding $1 billion per event, just this year. While it's difficult to claim that any individual event was caused by climate change, there's ample scientific evidence that climate change has an amplifying effect on the frequency and intensity of such events. And if current scientific projections are correct, climate change will continue to cause increasingly severe storms and flooding, as well as more intense heat waves, droughts, and wildfires. So we in Iowa City, those of us in the room and outside, could tell ourselves that there's nothing we can do about it. We should take a free ride and let the state, the federal government, and other countries fix the problem. The City Council of Iowa City does not want to wait for this hypothetical free ride. By authorizing me to sign the Covenant of Mayors agreement 15 months ago, the Council has allied ourselves with mayors of 7,400 cities, over 680 million people, and more than 9% of the global population in committing to take effective climate action. Yes. With the help of AmeriCorps volunteers, we've conducted energy-saving audits of the city's public housing units. We have updated our inventory of greenhouse gas emissions and have just completed a nationally unique consumption-based inventory, which maybe Brenda will talk more about it later on. We have set community-wide carbon emission reduction targets of about 27% by the year 2025 and 80% by 2050, and maybe we can figure out how to do a lot of that more quickly. We created a 13-person climate action steering committee, I think most of whom are in the room tonight, and hired a terrific consulting team to help us devise a plan for achieving those goals. They're not just numbers, in other words. We intend to achieve those goals. We also recently adopted a new bicycle master plan and a master parks plan. And we're currently working with a consultant to devise better rules for guiding development in at least 2 of our neighborhoods. So land development practices are woven into what we're doing. And we've allocated $150,000 in the fiscal year 18 budget and the following year's budget to climate action projects, including a climate action small grants program. I want to say a little more about that. This small grants program is intended to support community-based projects that will inspire and energize a broad range of Iowacitians, help build strong public support for our climate action efforts, and stimulate further creative community-based efforts. Which brings us to tonight's meeting. We need your help. We need your ideas, we need your energy, and we need your passion. And we especially need your willingness to reach beyond your familiar community of friends and reach out to other people who you do not know, other communities in our city. Work with them to invent actions that will help Iowa City build a more inclusive, just, and sustainable city. That's what we're here to do. So I'm very happy to be here. Welcome for being here tonight. Thank you for coming. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to our terrific sustainability coordinator, Brenda Nations. Brenda?
Thank you, Mayor Throckmorton, who just spoke. I'm Brenda Nations, Iowa City Sustainability Coordinator, and welcome tonight. It's good to see a great crowd because we are really interested in your input, and that's what this meeting is all about. So it's great to see you all here. So as Mayor Throckmorton talked about, the council signed a resolution committing Iowa City to some climate goals, some climate targets. And these, as he said, are a short-term target for reducing emissions 26 to 28% and a long-term goal to reduce emissions 80% by 2050. And so this plan that we're creating tonight is going to be a way to help get us to those goals. And so the strategies that you're going to be looking at and helping us choose will be to get us to those numbers that we need to reach. In case you're wondering why we chose these numbers, the City Council chose these numbers because at the time when they chose them last calendar year, those were the numbers that the U.S. agreed to in the Paris Agreement, the climate agreement that was made in Paris. And so we have kept these numbers. A lot of cities have gotten more committed after the first of the year, and so we had these numbers, and we're keeping those, which are aggressive and also very promising numbers to try and to meet. So why are we creating a climate action plan? First of all, we want a plan that's really unique to Iowa City, something that looks at our challenges here, some of the challenges that we're facing from climate that we're seeing the changes already now, and also something that includes what we want as a community. And so we want to establish our strategies that help us not have as much impact from climate and also that reduce the impacts of climate too. So, and we want to ensure the benefits for all members of our community, as Mayor Throckmorton said, and we want to make sure that we find equitable solutions to these issues. And once we have a plan, we plan on measuring the progress over long term and making sure that we meet those goals. So over here, I'm going to be this evening manning the resource table, and this has some of our plans like that are some of our inventories here. You can also find these on our city website. We have a community-wide inventory, and that can be found on icdev.org /climate action, or you can just Google Iowa City climate action and you can probably find these. So we have a lot of information online if you're interested in that. And this information we're using as our baseline data. We may not all agree on the causes of climate change, but I think we can all agree that we want Iowa City to be a livable place, and we love Iowa City, and we want to continue being the place that it is. And I think we can all agree on some of these things that the plan is going to bring about that are beneficial to everybody, reducing our household expenses, reducing our municipal and business operational cost, having clean environment and clean air. There's some information that came out just recently about climate change and health, and also to prepare for the changes that we're already seeing in Iowa. So that's like more heat, more rain, and more flooding. So as Mayor Throckmorton said, they appointed a 13-member steering committee. So I'd like to introduce you to the chair, Ingrid Anderson, and so she can have a few moments.
Oh,
There you go.
okay. Thank you very much, Brenda. My name is Ingrid Anderson. I'm a staff member at the University of Iowa. I'm an environmental compliance specialist there. I'm also involved in the University of Iowa's biomass fuel project. And I'm one of the members of the Climate Action Steering Committee. There are several other members in the room. We were going to ask you to stand, but since so many people are standing, if you just want to raise your hand or jump up and down, but these are the members of your your Climate Action Steering Committee. But when the council appointed the committee, there are several community stakeholders represented. I represent the University of Iowa. There's representatives from Procter & Gamble, from the Iowa City Chamber of Commerce, from the Home Builders Association, Kirkwood Community College. I'm probably missing some others, but then there's a student representative from the University of Iowa, and then there were at-large members who applied and were chosen based on expertise and interests in the project. So I think we have a lot of the interests of Iowa City represented on that committee, and we've been able to give, I think, pretty good feedback to the city and the consultants, and this meeting is just another extension of that public community input into this process. And as a committee, we also worked to put together a vision statement. And as we are crafting this with the consultants, I don't want to just read this to you. I imagine everyone in here can take this in at their own pace. But some of the things that were important to us when we were developing this and thinking about the purpose of the committee is we wanted this to be community-wide. We wanted it to be an inclusive effort. We wanted to focus on resilience and future generations in Iowa City. And we wanted this idea of sustainability, something that would be, environmentally, economically, and socially viable going forward. So this is the basically our vision statement for this climate action process. And now I'm going to introduce the consultants who've been doing most of the heavy lifting on this project. And this is Lindy Law.
Hello. I'm Lindy Law, as she mentioned. There's a team of us here tonight, and we are backed by a pretty large staff of policy analysts, engineers, planners, and all sorts of people that are experts in the area of climate to do a lot of the research. When someone has a good idea, we start to work it out, figure out where we can find good examples, what we can build from our own and create here in Iowa City. So as mentioned, I think several times, the steering committee has been hard at work. As you see here on the timeline, we have a "You Are Here" on November 2nd. But the steering committee's been working pretty hard since the middle of the summer to start to think about strategies, craft the vision statement, start to think about strategies. We've conducted a series of stakeholder interviews, which brings us here tonight to November 2nd. We'll talk a little bit more about what comes next in just a minute. But what the steering committee started doing in the summer was thinking about, well, what are the ways that we can start to, think about developing this plan for Iowa City? And there's two types of strategies that usually come about. There's mitigation strategies and adaptation strategies. And usually they fall into one category or the other. Sometimes there's crossover. So mitigation really addresses the causes of climate change, things that impact climate change. We're talking about energy, transportation, those sorts of things. And adaptation is looking at, okay, well, we already know our climate is changing, so we need to make sure we're thinking about those things too. We're ready for big weather events. We're ready for, as the temperature starts to increase and we have a longer warm season and a shorter cold season, that we're ready for that we're ready for the increasing precipitation. It's very incremental, but it is happening and projected to continue to do so over time. So it's kind of a two-pronged approach at looking at climate change and developing strategies. There's a number of considerations that the steering committee has already started thinking about, and we ask you to start to, as you're going around the room looking at strategies, maybe think about what some of these might mean, but we'll be addressing these in greater detail as we start to hone in on the specific strategies that we're going to continue with. And some of those considerations will be, well, what's the impact? Does this have an impact on emissions? If it's a little impact, and it costs a lot of money to do the strategy, that strategy might not make it to the final cut. So there's all sorts of considerations. Equity, how is this impacting across the entire city? Can everybody partake in this? Is there an impact on one group of people versus another that we don't want to see that happen? So those are considerations that will happen too. Co-benefits is a nice term to say, kind of what Brenda talked about already, which is, we might have a strategy that reduces emissions in energy, let's say in energy for a household. Well, a good benefit of that is that, hey, your energy bill goes down, so you have more money approaching the holidays or for whatever, to fix your household budget somewhere else. So there's lots of different types of co-benefits that can occur in strategies, and we'll be looking at those too. And there's other factors that, depending on the strategy, that we may be considering as we continue to move forward with strategies and discussing them. So tonight we have essentially 3 activities. There's the main event, and then there's some additional things. So what you see around the room, I'll talk about each of those. The main event is the strategy tables. Now you see the boards around the room. There's 5 areas of strategies for now. This may not be what you see in the final plan later, but for what we have tonight, we have the energy, transportation, waste, adaptation strategies, and then we have an other, which is kind of the potpourri. It's a little bit of everything in there. And probably later, out of this potpourri, there will be another set of a category or 2 more that you'll see in the plan. So we have these areas, and we have members of the steering committee who will be by these tables. What we are hoping to hear from you of all of these strategies is to make your way around the room during the rest of the evening, and you have the dots voting. So we're asking 2 questions for each strategy. 1, do you think this strategy is important for the city? And then the second question, it's like a 2-part question. So yes or no, well, it's a yes. Either you put your blue dot there if you think it's a yes. And then the next question is, do you think you can play a role in this strategy? And playing a role in this strategy could mean I'm with an organization that will have a big role in implementing this strategy across the city and doing outreach and doing all sorts of things. Or it might be as simple as saying, well, for example, here's an example, zero waste. I think I can have a role in that because I'll start recycling a little bit more, and I'll be a little more conscious about what I'm throwing in my garbage can. That's taking a role too. So we want you to think broadly about how you can play a role in these strategies. And just using an example, there might be under energy or transportation, let's say there's something under transportation, it might be about fleet vehicles. That might be something that you think is a great strategy for the city. You don't own a fleet, you don't work at a business that has a fleet, so you probably wouldn't have a role in that, and that's fine. We just want to hear both parts for you on that. So that is how that will work around the room. And then, oh, I'm sorry, yes. And also on the tables, we have a lot of strategies in there. We think we've covered it, but we're human, and I'm sure we've probably left something out. So if there is a strategy that you think is a great idea, we have blank posters on each board, on each table, that you can add your own strategy as well. And everything that will take place at this meeting will be documented, so we do encourage you just to add it in. Everyone around the room, the steering committee members at each table can answer questions, and then the consultant team and city staff will also be roaming the room to answer questions. Of course, you see there's a lot of people here tonight, so it might take a while. We have Mary Jo will be our timekeeper, just making announcements throughout the night over the microphone, just to remind people how much time is left, how much time has passed. Generally, you might want to think about 15 minutes per table, but obviously you see there's some tables that have more strategies than other. Use your time wisely. Use it up to you. If you're most concerned about energy and transportation and you want to spend most of your time there, that's quite all right. But we also have other activities while you're waiting. If it gets a little crowded by these tables, we have, as Brenda mentioned, the resource table, lots of cool stuff that the city has already done and worked on that you can take a look at. Please don't take them home. I think there's only 1 copy, but everything I believe is available online. Is that correct, as you mentioned? And then last but not least, Liz over there will be manning our interactive writing wall that says, what does climate action mean to you? And we just throw ideas out there on the board. It's fun. Everybody likes to write on a wall. Don't really write on the wall, write on the poster. And just feel, she's got tons of pencils, and if If your answer is a picture, feel free to draw a picture up there, but that's more activities to do. And last but not least, I would say that the team is here to answer any questions if you have any specific questions about how we got here today. So what happens next? You're probably like, okay, we're going to give you all this information. Are we ever going to hear from you again? Yes, you'll hear from us. Within the next few days after this meeting, if you said that we can contact you at the sign-in table, you will receive kind of a survey, a meeting evaluation. Please request that you respond to that survey and answer it. We do want to know that we want to hear how we did for this meeting, if it was effective, if it was too crowded and you didn't get to do what you wanted to do. We want to hear good or bad. We need the feedback so that when we have another meeting that we're adequately prepared and we even make it better. That sounded really negative. I don't think it's going to be a negative experience, but I'm just encouraging you to be completely honest. We'll also continue to follow up after this meeting. We'll have documentation of this meeting. It is as a consultant, we strongly believe in recording everything that happens at the meeting. So all of the vote tallies, all of the individual responses on the table, any comments that we get will all be documented and available online. If there's a concise report, we plan to put together a concise report, and you said we can contact you, we'll send you a copy of the meeting summary. And then later, sometime in November and December, we'll be administering a survey to the broader community. Yes, you all are here, and that is a fantastic start. We're really excited, but we want to make sure that we're reaching people who couldn't come here tonight. Families of, people with small children. There's all sorts of reasons why people might not have come here tonight. This survey will be available in Spanish as well. And then later on down the line, so that's November and December, expect to hear from us. As you see here, there'll be I can't walk away from the mic. There'll be a draft plan that is done in February, and you'll start to hear things about that. Eventually, the plan will be finalized in April. There'll be another community meeting around that time as well. Probably be a different format to some degree. So that is the general timeline and process. And then the anticipation is that in May, the plan would be approved by City Council, and then that's when the real work begins. The plan is over and it's time to start doing. So that is the general timeline moving forward after tonight. If you have any questions about this timeline or what comes next or how might you fit in, please grab any of us. Come grab me. I'll be roaming around the room. I'm happy to talk with you directly about that. Thank you.